Coming up today on News 3 Live at 4, the first and last debate between Wisconsin's candidates for U.S. Senate, how to watch and what to look out for.
And why the League of Women Voters is asking the DOJ to investigate texts young people in Wisconsin are receiving. And
a series of visits ahead of Election Day, the big names that'll be in Wisconsin next week.
All those stories and more coming up next on News 3 Now, live at 4.
You have a clear choice in this election. Senator Baldwin is a 38-year career politician. I'm a businessman and job creator. She supports taxpayer benefits for illegal immigrants. I'll close the border. Tammy wants to put guys and girls sports in their bathrooms. I'll protect our daughters. Senator Baldwin abuses the political system. I'll fight the corruption. I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message. I'd be honored to have your vote.
Good afternoon and welcome to the special edition of News 3 Now live at 4, Battleground, Wisconsin. Every Friday until November 5th, we are dedicating the entirety of Live at 4 to election coverage here in Wisconsin and around the country.
Viewers tell us they want to be more informed when they head to the polls. This show is designed to do just that. Today, both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are in Michigan hosting dueling events.
It's one of the so-called blue wall states, which are key for Harris's victory. A loss in any of them could spell trouble for her on election night. Well, of this, as the federal judge in Trump's election interference case released heavily redacted documents offering glimpses into the prosecution's case. The documents include an interview with a White House aide who said when he told Trump about the rioting at the Capitol on January 6th, the former president sat in the Oval Office dining room and watched it unfold. Meanwhile, in Battleground, North Carolina, the devastation from Hurricane Helene hasn't stopped a record number of voters from showing up in person. And in Georgia, state election officials announced 1 million voters had cast their ballots just before noon today. Also, a record number of early votes.
Here in Wisconsin, the two U.S. Senate candidates will face off in their first debate tonight.
Incumbent Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin and Republican candidate Eric Hovde will debate for an hour beginning at 7 p.m. Our Braden Ross will be there. Braden, so what can we expect tonight?
Yeah, this is the only scheduled debate for these candidates as of now, and it's a high-stakes night for both of them as polls show this race getting tighter and tighter. Eyes nationwide will be on Madison tonight as Hovde and Baldwin face off. Although Republicans are very likely to keep control of the Senate this year, but Baldwin's seat is still a must-win for Democrats because of Wisconsin's importance in the presidential race. In other words, if Baldwin loses, it almost certainly means Harris will lose Wisconsin as well. Now, we asked the candidates what a win will look like tonight. Here's Hovde.
I look forward to finally debating. Senator Baldwin has ran from every debate, and typically you get 3 to 4, and now we're getting one debate for 1 hour on a Friday night. So I'm just looking forward to talking about issues and debating Senator Baldwin.
Now, Baldwin's campaign sent us a statement reading in part, quote, Tammy Baldwin will show why Wisconsin voters trust her to represent them in the U.S. Senate. She shows up, listens, and delivers for them and their families, and she'll work with anyone to do it. Now, recent political ratings organizations have moved this race from a seat that leans Democrat to a toss-up. Again, the debate kicks off at 7 tonight. You can watch it on Channel 3.2 or stream it online at channel3000.com.
Braden, thank you. Vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance will be in Wisconsin on Sunday, October 20th, delivering remarks in Waukesha. He'll speak about issues affecting Catholic voters and discuss the Catholics for Trump coalition the Trump campaign launched in September. The Pew Research Center found that Trump has an edge over Harris in the polls when it comes to white Catholic voters. Vance is set to speak on Saturday at 5 p.m.
Well, Democrats are making campaign stops in Wisconsin, too. On Monday, First Lady Dr. Jill Biden came to Madison, and she told voters to meet the moment as if their rights were at stake. Also on Monday, vice presidential candidate Minnesota Governor Tim Walz stopped in Eau Claire and in Green Bay, where Governor Tony Evers and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer joined him. Then on Thursday, Vice President Kamala Harris herself campaigned in Milwaukee, La Crosse, and Green Bay, and the visits aren't ending anytime soon. On Sunday, members of the West Wing cast will campaign for the Harris-Walz ticket in Madison. And then on Sunday and Monday, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren will campaign for the ticket in Eau Claire and La Crosse. On Tuesday, former President Barack Obama will be in Madison, campaigning with Governor Walz. That's the same day early voting kicks off in the state. The two are expected to hold a rally.
This week, voting rights advocates are urging the state and federal justice departments to investigate a vaguely threatening text thousands of young voters in our state allegedly received. We were able to get a hold of one of those messages. It came from a Wisconsin area code and warns the recipient not to vote in a state where they aren't eligible for fear of legal and financial consequences. This specific message went to a 21-year-old Wisconsin woman who's attending college in Tennessee. Her mother reached out to us to talk about it.
That came to her apropos of nothing, out of the blue, and she was panicked. Think of how many young voters, elderly voters, new voters in period, might be very intimidated and in fact not vote if they receive something like this.
Now, the text did not stop the woman from voting absentee. Wisconsin law says any false device or tactic intended to impede or dissuade a person from voting can be ruled as felony voter intimidation. Local election officials have to send reports of election fraud or irregularities to the DA. The group is asking the government to investigate. The group who is asking the government to investigate is doing so on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin. A statement from them reads, in part, quote, Wisconsin voters need to know that these threatening text messages are illegal, and the League of Women Voters will fight against bad actors who seek to sow confusion in our elections.
Meanwhile, Attorney General Josh Kaul says he expects challenges to the state's election results. In an interview with Upfront, Kaul says he's prepared to defend those results if need be. He then issued a reminder voter intimidation and threats to election workers are against the law. It reads in part, it's essential that we protect the right to vote. Wisconsin DOJ is committed to making sure that Wisconsin once again has a safe and secure election. Earlier this year, Kaul filed felony charges against Trump's attorneys Kenneth Chesebro and Jim Troupis, as well as Trump aide Mike Roman, who helped submit paperwork falsely saying the former president had won Wisconsin in 2020. Kaul has not ruled out filing more charges, including against the 10 Republicans who posed as fake electors.
And Kaul isn't the only official preparing for challenges. After nearly losing her job because of Trump's lies that Wisconsin's election was rigged in favor of Joe Biden, the state's top elections official is encouraging people who doubt election integrity to observe the process for themselves.
You can observe elections at any of the thousands of polling places around the state. You can even observe things like the pre-election tests of voting equipment that happen in each jurisdiction, the tally of absentee ballots, and even the audits that happen after Election Day. All of these things are happening in every community across the state. It's all publicly noticed and publicly observable.
Next month, the state Supreme Court will hear arguments in the case between the state's Elections Commission and the Republicans who sought to remove Megan Wolfe from office. Well, next week, you can start voting in-person absentee. Early voting starts Tuesday, October 22nd, just 2 weeks before Election Day.
Joining us now to talk about early voting in Madison, the city's Deputy Clerk, Jim Verbic. Good afternoon, and thanks for being on with us on Live at 4 Battleground, Wisconsin.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So what should people know about the election observers this time around?
Yeah, so election observers are something that have occurred in every election, and it's an opportunity for people, whether they be with a political party or not, to come and watch the process of in-person absentee voting or at the polling place on Election Day to just kind of see how things are going. They should not be talking to any voters. If they have any questions or anything, they can talk with the inspectors that are there.
And the city of Madison says the observer process helps keep our elections transparent. How exactly does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. It allows people to watch what's going on, to make sure that everything's happening as it should be happening. Like I said, if they have any questions, they can ask questions. A lot of time people just don't have an understanding about what is happening at a polling place or why things are done the way they are. And this gives an opportunity for them to kind of see what's happening and see what's going on.
You had already touched on the strict rules about what observers can and can't do at polling places. So I guess if voters notice anything that doesn't sit right with them, what should they do? Or why is it important to have these practices in place?
Yeah, it's important that we have certain rules in place so that way the process of elections aren't disrupted at all. you're certainly welcome to observe and watch what's going on, but you're not allowed to disrupt the process of voting. And so if anyone has concerns, they can always talk to an election official. At each of our locations, we have a chief inspector who's the head person in charge for election day. We don't have a chief inspector at in-person absentee voting, but you can talk to any election official that are there, and they'll make sure to talk to the observer if they're not following any of the rules. Observers are given a warning. If they do not follow the warning, they could potentially be removed from the polling place.
And are there any misconceptions about election observers that you would want to set straight for people who maybe don't understand the process?
Yeah, I think sometimes people think observers can walk around where they want. There's again, designated areas within 3 to 5 feet of poll book tables and other locations where they can be and they can observe what's going on. Observers are welcome to challenge the eligibility of a voter. They need to challenge with something personally known to them. So if someone comes in and they can't just blanket challenge a swath of voters. If someone is not speaking English, that's not grounds for challenging someone's citizenship. They need to personally know that this person is not a citizen. And so if we find that they're abusing that sort of challenge process, then that's a situation where they would be asked to leave because they'd be disrupting the process. But just not speaking English or anything like that, that's not grounds. So people should not be concerned about that they would be challenged or unable to vote for that reason.
Thank you very much, Jim. I suspect you will be very busy the next few weeks.
Yeah, thank you.
With Chevy trucks, be ready for adventure. With power you can count on. Capability that doesn't compromise. A hard-working EV with more range than any competitor. And the potential to take you anywhere.
Get 0% financing plus make no monthly payments for 90 days on all 2024 Silverado 1500 pickups. Or get $5,750 total value on this Silverado.
See your Badgerland Chevy dealer today.
Welcome into Buzzed In Madison. We are back at April Air, and this time joined with Nicole Gravy, product manager, and we've got a brand new product to talk about. This time of year is such good sleeping weather because that nice cold air is coming in through the windows. But you know what that means? Dry winter air, it's on its way, which is why we need to upgrade to the brand new 720 whole home humidifier. You had a hand in designing this, so first let's go talk about some of the dry air symptoms.
Yeah, if you have dry air in your home, you're gonna have things like dry, itchy skin, sore throat, chapped lips.
Yep, dry hair, have had all of those things.
Yeah.
What are the benefits of having more clean air in your home?
Yeah, so having healthy humidification is gonna help reduce airborne bacteria, viruses, dust mites. It's really gonna help your overall health so that you feel better, sleep better. And it's going to help preserve the home too. Things like your wood floors and your wood furniture aren't going to dry out and crack.
Would have never even thought about anything like that. So this is a brand new product. How is this different than, products you've had in the past, which you guys specialize in whole home humidification, but this is brand new?
Yeah, so we're really excited about the 720. It really is going to give best-in-class performance while also reducing the wastewater by 60%. So what that means is you're gonna get healthy humidification faster and more efficiently than ever, and it's designed for super simple maintenance. You just take out the one-piece hydrocore and pop a new one right back in, done in 60 seconds.
And you can unlock the full potential of your new system with the Healthy Air app. Everything that you need. AprilAir.com, you can find a pro right there. They'll come to your house, they'll get you taken care of. Thank you, Nicole. I'm Emmy Fink, and you're Buzzed Into Madison.
Building that middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency. Compare that to Trump. He fights for himself and his billionaire friends. He intends to enact a national sales tax, the Trump tax, that would raise prices on middle class families by $4,000 a year. Instead of a tax hike, we will pass a middle class tax cut that will benefit more than 100 million Americans.
FFPAC is responsible for the content of this ad.
Welcome back. Ahead of tonight's Senate debate and amid a flurry of visits to Wisconsin from Democrats, we spoke with a Democratic analyst about the party's strategy in the last few weeks before Election Day.
Our Eric Franke sat down with Annalise Eicher, the Director of Communications of Planned Parenthood Wisconsin, to get some insight.
Annalise, thank you for being with us. Now, we've seen Kamala Harris make a number of stops, and, you know, Thursday, it's about these college kids and talking to them about getting out the vote. How important is that demographic, you think, in Wisconsin, and can she get them out to vote?
Well, thank you for having me, and I think the college demographic is important in every election. If you think about the issues that are at stake in this election and almost every election, it impacts college students. It impacts young people who are looking to the future of their lives. You know, what kind of country are they going to be able to grow up in? What kind of policies are going to be there? And so, you know, the focus on the college crowds, the focus on reproductive rights, on student loan debt, on ensuring that folks have opportunity and are able to afford to have opportunity in this country. You know, that I think that really resonates. And you know, the turnout game in Wisconsin, it's always a turnout game. I think the Democrats have historically done an incredible job at turning out young people. Young people they tend to vote Democrat on account of the policies, and we have a very engaged youth on college campuses, not on college campuses in Wisconsin, and so those folks, they vote almost every time, almost every election. I think we're certainly seeing engagement from them. You know, in polls, I know there was, you know, everyone keeps talking about that 18 to 30 crowd, which, you know, I unfortunately not a part of any longer, but, you know, that crowd, they're when they say, yes, I'm voting, and yes, I'm voting for Kamala Harris and the Democrats on the ballot, you know, that is a great sign. And it's a sign that the strategies that they're using to talk to those folks and the issues that they stand on and care about, it's working.
What about Mark Cuban? You know, you see these certain surrogates that maybe a lot of people can't relate to, or they're just other politicians. He brings a little something different to the table. He's been very critical of Donald Trump on social media. Now he's really joining forces with Kamala Harris, and he may resonate, you think, with people that have watched Shark Tank through the years? They know him?
Shark Tank has a fairly large audience, and Mark Cuban has a solid following of folks, and I think, you know, folks respect his opinion as an outsider and respect his experience. I think, you know, he's been a great surrogate for Kamala Harris and the Democrats, and it's great.
I think we're going to see a lot of visits these final 19 days. It'd be a big one in Madison on Tuesday. Barack Obama with Tim Walz. He still packs a punch when he comes to Wisconsin, and you can pretty much expect a packed house with him.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to President Obama being here with Governor Walz. You know, I think it has really great Midwest dad energy, but also two incredibly smart and compassionate human beings who are, you know, who are in politics as, you know, as Obama was as president, and as a senator, and as Governor Walz is as governor, for the right reasons. You know, they're here for the people, and they're pushing the issues that, you know, that folks care about. And there's a genuineness that shows up in both President Obama and Governor Walz that I think is really going to be beneficial in these last couple of weeks.
Annalise, thanks so much for joining us. Going to be an interesting couple weeks plus to Election Day, but it's almost here. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Eric and Annalise, thank you. Young voters are broadly considered a part of the Democrats' base.
But the party's become increasingly concerned about the choices young men will make on Election Day. More specifically, Democrats are concerned about a shift reflected in the polls showing men of color are becoming more conservative. Earlier this week, we heard from the vice president about specific policy proposals her administration would pursue, specifically aimed at helping black men. Those include proposals to remove medical debt from credit scores and putting more money into HBCUs. At a town hall with radio host Charlemagne the God, Harris pushed back on criticisms of the timing of her outreach.
What I'm talking about right now is not new and is not for the sake of winning this election.
This is about a long-standing commitment, including the work that I've done as vice president and before.
Today, Harris heads
The
back
VP
to
also
Philadelphia
proposed
while
forgivable
Trump
loans to black entrepreneurs, a health initiative tackling conditions that disproportionately affect black men, and legalizing recreational marijuana.
Another group, Democrats and Republicans, are looking to shore up support from Latino voters. Registered Latino voters have grown at the second fastest rate of any major racial and ethnic group in the country. That includes about 180,000 people here in Wisconsin. Latino groups say the population will be a deciding one in this election.
The power, I think, is in, one, the numbers. You know, the population has been increasing in the last decade. But two, also, there's a lot of workers who are working in the dairy farms, who are working across the state to maintain this economy.
Across battleground states, 70% of Latino voters plan to vote, and polling shows that economy is their top issue. When asked who their choice is right now, 62% of Latino voters in battleground states say they're voting for Harris, compared to 34% who say they're voting for Trump.
Taxpayers in McFarland won't have to pay as much as a school district originally pitched if they pass the referendum in November. This is because this week the district found out it's getting almost $15.6 million in state aid, roughly $550,000 more than it originally estimated in July. The school board originally approved a referendum in August, raising the revenue limit by about $5 million for the next 3 years. District Administrator Aaron Tarnutzer says the referendum question and amount does not change. Taxpayers will just have to pay 28% less. He says it's because districts receive an estimate of state aid in July that they have to build referendum questions on, but get the final estimates this month.
So it makes it very challenging to build a budget around a lot of unknowns. And it really causes a lot of stress to our community, our school district, our taxpayers. So it doesn't give spendable money to the school district. What it does is it decreases the amount of our revenue that comes from the taxpayer.
If passed for a property valued at $400,000, the referendum would add $310 the first year, $294 the second year, and $293 the third year. The district has this update on its website and is planning a public information meeting Sunday, October 27th.
Well, up next on Live at 4, a rare sight in politics, civil discourse between a Democrat and Republican running against each other.
Oh my gosh. What candidates in western Wisconsin had to say during a debate for state senate.
Nobody wants to think about cold weather, but now's the time to winterproof your home. Is your house cold every winter? Your home needs foam. Are your heating costs too high? Your home needs foam. Do you have different temperatures in different rooms? Your home needs foam. USA Premium Foam is over 35% more efficient than ordinary, weaker insulation. Winterproof now and get 0% financing for 72 months.
USA Insulation.
With high inflation, working families like mine are hurting, and Kamala Harris helped create this mess. Now, while Americans struggle, Kamala spent our tax dollars putting illegal immigrants up in hotel rooms, and she supported spending our tax dollars to give illegals sex changes. It's not just liberal, it's insane. Kamala Harris can never, ever be our president.
Preserve America PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
A flood of illegals, skyrocketing prices, global chaos, and Kamala wouldn't change a thing.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Nothing will change with Kamala. More weakness, more war, more welfare for illegals, and even more taxes. Only President Trump cut middle-class taxes, and only President Trump will do it again.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Happy anniversary! Join us for our anniversary sale.
And help us celebrate.
We're having our biggest sale of the year with savings throughout the showroom.
Where you can save big.
And you can save big.
You can save big. You can save big.
On quality home furnishings throughout the showroom.
Join us for our anniversary sale.
Wanakee Furniture ETC. Bringing quality homes since 1996.
Quartz takes a different approach to health insurance.
We know every life well lived is a journey, and we're here to light the way at every step. That's why for 40 years, we've been alongside the doctors and hospitals who know what their communities need. Because they're a part of them. Because we're a part of them. There's a fire burning in all of us. Let's ignite it together. Quartz. Find your spark.
Every day starts with a routine, but it's the details that define our day. Clarity that helps you focus and keeps your goals in sight. In every moment, every look, every glance. See the world your way with Wisconsin Vision. Ask about 40% off lenses with purchase of frame. Wisconsin Vision. See more life.
With less than 3 weeks until the election, voters' devices are buzzing with campaign text messages and ads.
But in western Wisconsin, chances to hear directly from candidates in the same room are few and far between. Ken Kozorowski reports.
It is important when it comes to an election that the people of this district get an opportunity to hear firsthand from the candidates that are running for office.
And that's what La Crosse area voters got this week at UWL, with 2 candidates for state senate agreeing to a debate, incumbent Democrat Brad Pfaff and Republican Stacey Klein. Voters saw civil discourse on disagreements over solutions to things like funding child care.
We need to fully fund child care counts.
We saw examples of partnership throughout the state. So that's counties working with businesses, working with other organizations, finding ways that we can get really creative about solving this issue.
To some overlap on the potential to legalize medical and possibly recreational marijuana.
I do not believe the state should run that. I believe that I believe in the private sector.
I'm also a full supporter of law enforcement, and law enforcement does not want recreational marijuana.
Klein is a newcomer to state politics, but is on the Trempealeau County Board, which borders La Crosse County to the north. If she went for an attack, it was after Pfaff's voting record.
Senator Pfaff talks about targeted tax relief. There were 4 separate tax relief bills that came through the legislature in the last session. He voted against 3 of them.
And Pfaff would push back.
I frankly do not believe that it's fair that a teacher who makes $50,000 a year should pay the same tax rate as a multimillionaire that lives in Madison or Milwaukee.
One of the biggest problems the next senator has to solve is getting the PFAS remediation bill signed into law for the town of Campbell, whose residents have had to use bottled water for 4 years. But the same arguments that played out in legislative session are still front and center on the campaign trail.
He talks about his bipartisanship. This was a prime example of where he could have reached across the aisle, done something very good for the area.
The way that bill is structured right now, it lets the polluters off the hook.
Still, a chance for voters to see their options side by side, hear perspectives, and solidify a choice. A chance that gets slimmer and slimmer with each election cycle.
Thank you, Ken.
We'll be right back.
Sarah Kieski, she supports lifting revenue limits, allowing property tax rates to skyrocket unchecked. Kieski's backers want to ban natural gas to heat our homes, driving utility bills through the roof. That's Kieski's record, expensive and extreme.
Sometimes the smallest cracks can cause the biggest chills. This fall, watch out for The Draft.
For quality windows, siding, and doors, call 866 for Feldco.
After careful review of medical guidance and research on pain relief, my recommendation is simple. Every home should have Salon Paws. Powerful, yet non-addictive. Targeted and long-lasting. I recommend Salon Paws. It's good medicine.
He sent me to. We know we cannot have a strong middle class without American manufacturing. Under Donald Trump, America lost nearly 200,000 manufacturing jobs. His record is a disaster for working people. Under my plan, we will invest in the industries that built America, because ours is a fight for the future. I come from the middle class, and I will never forget where I come from.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Building that middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency. Compare that to Trump. He fights for himself and his billionaire friends. He intends to enact a national sales tax, the Trump tax, that would raise prices on middle-class families by $4,000 a year. Instead of a tax hike, we will pass a middle-class tax cut that will benefit more than 100 million Americans.
MFPAC is responsible for the content of this ad.
Sarah Kieski, she supports lifting revenue limits, allowing property tax rates to skyrocket unchecked. Kieski's backers want to ban natural gas to heat our homes, driving utility bills through the roof. That's Kieski's record, expensive and extreme.
News 3 Now First Warn Weather is brought to you by Lazy Boy Home Furnishings and Decor.
Discover a shopping and design experience as comfortable as the furniture. Lazy Boy Home Furnishings and Decor. Schedule your free design consultation today.
Welcome back to Live at 4 Battleground, Wisconsin. Every Friday until the election, we're turning Live at 4 into an all-politics show covering campaigns in Wisconsin and across the nation.
Viewers tell us they want to be more informed before they head to the polls, so this show is designed to do just that.
Right now, we are just hours away from the only scheduled debate in the race for U.S. Senate. Senator Tammy Baldwin is defending her seat against challenger Eric Hovde.
Ahead of tonight's debate, our political reporter Will Keneally has more on what to expect. Will?
Well, as you say, this will likely be the only time that we see these two candidates square off against each other. And it was a race that looked like Baldwin was in the lead for. But we've heard from our sources that the race is actually tighter than public polls would suggest. Now, we spoke with UW lacrosse professor Anthony Chergosky about the trend in that race and what to expect tonight.
I feel like the sense I get from the Hovde campaign is they feel like they have the wind at their back. And so the question is, will there be a big moment to keep the race trending in their direction?
Now, Chergosky says that he expects Baldwin to make the case for the stakes of the race. Now, if Baldwin loses in the race, that could mean a bad night for Democrats in Wisconsin at the presidential level. Wisconsin is one of the tipping point states in that Harris-Trump race.
Well, thank you, Will. Earlier this week, Democratic VP candidate Tim Walz sat down with us for an exclusive interview in the wake of continued pressure by some Democrats to take a harder stance on Israel's actions in Gaza. We asked Walz how he plans to unify the Democratic Party.
Yeah, we just in Minnesota had a large group of folks, of Muslim voters, endorse the campaign. They're speaking for concerns that they have, and that's fine. But I think an understanding is this is a choice between Donald Trump's reckless policies that our allies don't trust him. Dictators love him because he wants to be one, and he has no plan.
We have the full interview available to see online at channel3000.com. The latest polling average from 538 has the race deadlocked. The average takes into account all recent Wisconsin polls, their precinct, the sample size, methodology, and House effects. As of today, 538 has neither Harris nor Trump leading, instead labeling the average even. Harris has 47.8% of the vote, and Trump has 47.7%.
Ahead of the big day, Trump is upping his rhetoric against Democrats, referring to them as the, quote, enemy within. Take a listen.
We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
Trump has also been laying the groundwork to question the integrity of the 2024 election. He says if he wins the White House again, he'll seek their prosecution and long-term prison sentences for election officials and political operatives who he suggested could cheat.
In addition to the former president's rhetoric about subduing his political opponents, experts are raising alarms about the GOP's anti-fact-checking stance.
Earlier, we spoke with a UW professor of journalism and mass communication. Lucas Graves has been researching the rise of political fact-checking in journalism and politicians' reactions for years.
Well, and you're featured in a Washington Post article called Trump Wages Campaign Against Real-Time Fact Checks. And essentially, we've seen that his campaign has said, we're not sure if we're going to do this interview, do this appearance if we are going to be fact-checked. You know, why do you think this campaign is doing this, and is it working?
So I think it's working in the, to the extent
that is preventing the candidates from getting the kind of scrutiny that a fact checker would give, or that they would get during a debate or an interview that was fact checked. Now, I think it's really important to say it's not that sort of fact checkers only hear this from one side of the aisle. Like I said, I started researching fact checkers during the Obama administration, and there were, plenty of times when the White House would sort of be furious at fact checkers. They would really disagree with their rulings. But I think it's true that over the last several years, on the right in the Republican Party in the United States, it's become really common to dismiss all fact checking as somehow biased. And I think there's been a campaign from some Republican politicians to try to label any efforts to fight disinformation on social media as censorship. And the argument is that, fact checkers and all of these other efforts to fight disinformation really discriminate against conservative viewpoints.
And you mentioned in the article that it's now kind of a legitimate argument to kind of say that you disapprove of fact checking. How do we get to that point?
So I think we got to that point pretty gradually, and I think you're absolutely right that that's the really important change. I mean, politicians always get mad at fact checkers, but at least, as they do with other journalists, but, it used to be the case that they had to at least pretend to respect the role that they were playing in democracy and in trying to help inform the public. It's very possible for politicians to score points by attacking the media. That's something that has been part of Trump's strategy, since 2016 and earlier. And so we've seen that really be directed at fact checkers in particular over the last few years.
And really quickly, we only have a little bit of time left. I wanted to ask about the Harris campaign. Vice President Harris did go on Bret Baier, and that was a bit more of a combative interview. But before that, she was criticized for going to some safe spaces like The View, Stephen Colbert, and Call Her Daddy, the podcast, where the interviewers might not be the type of interviewers to fact check her.
Look, I think that's an entirely fair criticism, and I think that it actually goes beyond fact checking. The point is that you want to be in spaces where you're going to be asked challenging questions and where the interviewer is going to push you to actually answer the question that's being asked, which is not something that we always see in these friendly spaces. I mean, it's entirely understandable that campaigns on both sides of the aisle seek exposure in outlets that are sort of friendly to their camp. That's always been a part of American politics. But it's important for them to be in other kinds of spaces too, right, where they're going to be challenged so that we as voters can see how they respond to those questions, to those potential criticisms, and then we really get a fuller picture of the kind of president that they might be.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure.
Still ahead, more on tonight's debate between Eric Hovde and Senator Tammy Baldwin.
Hear from each candidate on where they stand on the cost of health care when we return.
You have a clear choice in this election. Senator Baldwin is a 38-year career politician. I'm a businessman and job creator. She supports taxpayer benefits for illegal immigrants. I'll close the border. Tammy wants to put guys and girls sports in their bathrooms. I'll protect our daughters. Senator Baldwin abuses the political system. I'll fight the corruption. I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message. I'd be honored to have your vote.
Joan Baldwin wants to ban abortion, even in cases of rape, incest, and when the mother's life is at risk.
And would jail doctors who perform them.
Baldwin voted to ban birth control, too, and to deny rape victims emergency contraception.
Banning all abortions and birth control? No one wants to tell you what to do with your body more than Joan Baldwin.
But she can't tell you what to do with your vote.
Hi, my name is Damian Clark. If you have both Medicare and Medicaid, I have some really encouraging news that you'll definitely want to hear. Depending on the plans available in your area, you may be eligible to get extra benefits with the Humana Medicare Advantage Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan. Most plans include the Humana Healthy Options Allowance, a monthly allowance to help pay for eligible groceries, utilities, rent, and over-the-counter items. The Healthy Options Allowance is loaded onto a prepaid card each month, and whatever you don't spend carries over from each month. Plus, your doctor, hospital, and pharmacy may already be part of our large Humana networks. So call the number on your screen now and ask about a Humana Medicare Advantage dual eligible special needs plan. And remember, annual enrollment ends on December 7th. Humana, a more human way to healthcare.
To build the Honda CR-V Hybrid, we took everything you love about the CR-V and kicked it up a notch with greater power for a CR-V unlike any before. Adventure confidently with Honda, Car and Driver's most awarded brand in 10 Best history. The CR-V and CR-V Hybrid, part of the Honda line of rugged vehicles. Visit your local Honda dealer where new vehicles are arriving daily. Buy online or reserve from select Honda dealers.
New at 5, the stakes are high as U.S. Senate candidates Tammy Baldwin and Eric Hovde face off in their first and only debate. We'll hear from both candidates ahead of the big matchup.
Just look at these temperatures for the upcoming weekend. 71 Saturday, 77 on Sunday. How long unseasonably warm weather will last, and if there's frost in the forecast at 5.
And ahead at 6, what to listen for in tonight's Senate debate. Our experts break down the big topics each candidate must address. Don't miss it tonight at 6.
Welcome back. Wisconsinites say healthcare is one of the most significant problems they face. That's according to a UW-Madison study.
The topic is a focus for both Senator Tammy Baldwin and challenger Eric Hovde. News 8 Now's Allison Ferget explains what the candidates have to say about healthcare expenses.
Stakes could not be higher, and that's also true with regard to health care.
Senator Tammy Baldwin and Republican businessman Eric Hovde both say the high cost of health care is hurting Wisconsin families.
We've got to get health care costs down. That's the most important thing.
Candidates agree that lowering the cost of prescription drugs needs to be a priority.
I think we need to speed up the process to get more generics put into the market. I think we need to look at the length of time it takes to go through a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 drug trial. I think we need to look at the marketing dollars that Big Pharma is spending.
In a statement to News 8 Now, Baldwin says she's passed a law to stand up to Big Pharma and lower drug prices. Baldwin voted for the Inflation Reduction Act, which allows Medicare to negotiate the price of prescription drugs, helping lower out-of-pocket costs. Not a single Republican voted for the measure. In a recent op-ed, Hovde writes that the Affordable Care Act is to blame for rising health care costs. While he agrees with the provision that ensures people with pre-existing conditions are able to access health insurance, he says the ACA needs major restructuring.
We need to drive more competition. We need to drive price transparency, which is a very big part both in pharmaceutical drugs and medical care for any kind of services.
Baldwin has been a strong proponent of the ACA, saying the difference between her and Hovde's views on the act could not be more clear.
My opponent wants to overturn the Affordable Care Act, and he called the provision that I authored to allow young people to stay on their parents' health insurance stupid.
Hovde was caught on a hot mic this summer saying the provision is delaying young people's maturation. Wisconsin's Senate race could decide which party gets a majority in the Senate, meaning this election's outcome could have a major impact on the country's healthcare policy moving forward.
The truth is that our freedoms are on the line, and it may be decided here in Wisconsin.
Allison, thank you. Up next on Battleground Wisconsin, new legislative maps in Wisconsin means new candidates for some voters and vice versa.
Armand Rahman shows us how candidates are campaigning in new territory when we're back.
A flood of illegals, skyrocketing prices, global chaos, and Kamala wouldn't change a thing.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Nothing will change with Kamala. More weakness, more war, more welfare for illegals, and even more taxes. Only President Trump cut middle-class taxes, and only President Trump will do it again.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Billionaire banker Eric Hovde has a plan for Social Security.
Do you favor either raising the retirement age or cutting benefits?
I favor both.
Raising the retirement age?
You have to start changing the retirement age.
Hovde wants to raise the retirement age as high as 72. And Hovde just proposed cutting Social Security by 28%, costing the average beneficiary more than $6,000 a year. Eric Hovde, what's wrong with this guy?
I'm Tammy Baldwin, and I approve this message.
Meet Sarah Kieski. You might see her walking around in her Woke Genius t-shirt. Radical, just like the groups that support her. Kieski supporters want to defund the police. Her allies want to give voting rights to illegals and make it easier for felons to vote. And Kieski is backed by a group that wants to let criminals out early. Want to know where Sarah Kieski stands? Just look at the company she keeps.
Protect and enhance your home with an 11% rebate on your roofing project. Menards has an unbeatable selection of Atlas architectural shingles. Castlebrook, Briarwood, and Pinnacle all feature a super wide design for fast installation, limited lifetime warranty, and up to 130 miles per hour wind warranty. Choose from 20 styles in stock, ready to take home today. Get an 11% rebate on all Atlas shingles right now at Menards.
Save big money at Menards.
The right to vote is the foundation of democracy. For decades, we have been forced to fight voter suppression to increase voter turnout in the Black community, while overcoming barriers designed to undermine voter participation. The NAACP of Wisconsin believes your vote matters, and we urge you to double-check your voter information at myvotewisconsin.gov. In-person absentee voting begins Tuesday, October 22nd. Now let's be all in to vote on November 5.
When I was 5, I began getting sexually abused by my stepfather, and he got me pregnant when I was 12. "64,000 pregnancies from rape have occurred in states with total abortion bans. And Trump did this. Women and girls need to have choices. With Kamala Harris, we do."
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Many of Wisconsin's down-ballot races are literally in new territory. New legislative maps drawn in February by Governor Tony Evers.
It's led to more incumbents and first-time candidates to get out and meet all their new constituents, like the two women running to be 14th District Senator. Arman Rahman reports.
This was the second time constituents got to hear from the candidates running to represent them in Wisconsin's new 14th Senate District.
If you're in the same room with a person, you get more of a feeling for the kind of person they are.
Lodi resident Mary Ellen Rouge came to the forum with her own feelings about incumbent Republican Senator Joan Baldwin.
Part of her record is she voted no on contraception. She voted no on abortion, even in a case where a woman's health is at risk.
Abortion access was brought up early on at the forum Wednesday by a Lodi high school senior. Kieski doubled down on her pro-choice stance.
I want to make sure that people have the right to make choices over their body and to make choices over their health care.
Baldwin has gone on record as anti-abortion and against changing the law to include exceptions for rape or incest. She said women's health was still at the heart of the issue.
Before you get to the abortion, first of all, I totally agree that women should be participating or using whatever type of contraception processes that they are comfortable with.
This is the first election candidates have to study a whole new level of geography, the change in legislative maps. In the span of a year, they now have to connect with voters in more of Columbia, Adams, Vernon, Juneau, Dodge, and Dane counties.
A challenge that the work that I've done for the past 4 years is not wasted, but 2/3 of the district is changed. But the characteristics of the district are very similar.
Political newcomer Kieski sees it as a way to flip the 50-50 Senate seat that's been Republican for years.
It's an opportunity to really talk to people that maybe haven't heard more of a progressive message.
The Optimist Club and Lodi High School will host another forum for assembly candidates next Wednesday, October 23rd, also at 1 p.m. Reporting in Lodi, Arman Rahman, News 3 Now.
We're still going for that nice catch.
We're still going for that perfect pizza. And with higher stroke risk from AFib not caused by a heart valve problem,
we're going for a better treatment than warfarin. Eliquis. Eliquis reduces stroke risk and has less major bleeding. Over 97% of Eliquis patients did not experience a stroke.
Don't stop taking Eliquis without talking to your doctor, as this may increase your risk of stroke. Eliquis can cause serious and, in rare cases, fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve or abnormal bleeding. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. Get help right away for unexpected bleeding or unusual bruising. It may increase your bleeding risk if you take certain medicines. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures.
The #1 cardiologist prescribed blood thinner. Ask your doctor about Eliquis.
A flood of illegals, skyrocketing prices, global chaos, and Kamala wouldn't change a thing.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Nothing will change with Kamala. More weakness, more war, more welfare for illegals, and even more taxes. Only President Trump cut middle-class taxes, and only President Trump will do it again.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
For 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. I did a great service in doing it.
You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. The freedom to make decisions about one's own body should not be made by the government.
FFPAC is responsible for the content of this ad.
You have a clear choice in this election. Senator Baldwin is a 38-year career politician. I'm a businessman and job creator. She supports taxpayer benefits for illegal immigrants. I'll close the border. Tammy wants to put guys and girls sports in their bathrooms. I'll protect our daughters. Senator Baldwin abuses the political system. I'll fight the corruption. I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message. I'd be honored to have your vote.
Continuing our 3 for the People coverage, our Ellie La Liberté dives into the Madison city referendum. The city is asking residents to pay more in taxes to address a budget deficit.
Ellie will bring us that reporting next week. We sat down with her for a preview of how the issue will affect voters and their wallets. Ellie, tell us what your story's about.
Yeah, so it's about the Madison city budget referendum. So there is a capital budget and an operating budget. Now, we have a $22 million deficit in the operating budget. So that's responsible for city services and city staff. So it really looks at what would happen if we pass this referendum, which asks voters to raise the tax levy. There is a cap on that right now. So the state has a certain limit that the city can raise taxes by. So this asks voters to approve, what it would mean for the average Madisonian would look like a $230 a year increase on property taxes.
And where's that shortfall coming from?
Yeah, the shortfall is coming from a couple of different places, but when I was talking to the finance department, some of the things they were telling me was because of the cap on the state funding, that makes it a little bit difficult for them to raise limits. The population growth, they said, is making it hard for them to meet needs, along with inflation. Because of the limit, they're not able to keep pace with inflation. Another thing is they didn't get some of the pandemic relief funding this year, so that created, more problems with this deficit, but it's something that we've seen in the past. The city's saying that they have been in a deficit for the past 14 years. This is just one of the worst we've seen.
Gotcha. And I know you talked to a lot of our city leaders, officials, but you also spoke to some community members. Who'd you talk to?
Yeah, so I talked to, people who are both for and against this issue. There's things on the chopping block, like some library hours and programming. I spoke to a family who, uses that library every day, and it's something that they're going to be really sad to see some of those kids programming go. They use that all the time. But then I also talked to people who said, this is a lot to ask taxpayers. It's not fair for us to have to burden some of the things that the city feels like they might have had issues with. So you'll hear that on Monday, both of them saying their sides of this issue.
The opposition side, did anyone you talked with, did they say what they felt the city should have done to maybe prepare for this, or was there anything the city could have done?
Yeah, so one of the big things that they talked about was lobbying. Like, as I mentioned earlier, the big issue here, a lot of it has to do with how the state funds local governments. And so one of the big issues for this Vote No movement is the city should have been lobbying, should have been talking with state leaders before we got to this point. Now, Madison Mayor Satya Rhodes-Conway has said that if this does pass, it gives them time to work with the state. But some people are saying, too little, too late.
And this extra $230 a year, like you said, the mayor, she's just saying this is to maintain services, correct?
Right, yeah. So basically, if this referendum does pass and we do see that $230 increase, that is basically the budget we would see for that. Not much changes. It's very similar to what we've seen in years past. And I also want to mention that that $230, that's additional to the levy that we're already going to see increase anyway. So you're already going to see $83 increase on your tax bill no matter what, because that's what this city is allowed to raise right now. It's just if we're tacking on that extra $230.
And I know you've touched on it, but and I wanted to ask again, you know, if it weren't to pass, then what does the city do?
Yeah, well, that's where they have really been pushing this to vote yes, because it's a big cuts to a lot of services. A couple months back, the mayor asked every department to come up with 5% budget cuts. They then looked at that and kind of took some key points. So some of the things we could see lost if this doesn't pass is, like I was mentioning earlier, library hours, library programming. We could also see reduction in brush, leaf, and recycling drop-off sites. We could also see, you know, some cuts to city personnel. They say 18 positions could be impacted. That either means they're not filled, which could slow down services, or some people could lose their jobs. So there's a couple of different things on the chopping block here, which has concerned some people, and others saying, you know, this isn't our problem.
Well, Ellie, thank you.
Yeah.
We look forward to your reporting next week.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
We'll air Ellie's full.
Sarah Kieski, she supports lifting revenue limits, allowing property tax rates to skyrocket unchecked. Kieski's backers want to ban natural gas to heat our homes, driving utility bills through the roof. That's Kieski's record, expensive and extreme.
A flood of illegals, skyrocketing prices, global chaos, and Kamala wouldn't change a thing.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Nothing will change with Kamala. More weakness, more war, more welfare for illegals, and even more taxes. Only President Trump cut middle-class taxes, and only President Trump will do it again.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Discover a level of comfort you never thought possible. Discover stressless seating at the Century House. Designed to harmonize with your body's natural movements, it's the premier destination for relaxation and rejuvenation. Right now, take 10% off all stressless recliners, sofas, tables, and ottomans. The Century House, 3420 University Avenue in Madison.
I'm working harder than ever just to pay the bills and provide for my family. But here's what Kamala Harris thought my money should go to instead. Job training for illegal immigrants even after they commit crimes in America. Hotel rooms for illegal immigrants while our vets sleep on the street. Sex changes for illegal immigrants out of my pocket. Seriously, have these people lost their mind? Kamala Harris can never, ever be our president.
Preserve America PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
These Baldwin ads are nasty.
I can't stand them.
She never tells the truth. Now she says Eric Hovde wants to raise the retirement age.
That's malarkey.
I saw in the news Social Security will be going bankrupt in 8 years.
Are you kidding? We need Social Security.
You're surprised? Washington spends money like crazy.
And Baldwin supports all of it.
I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message.
You better get a job.
You get a job.
Sarah Kieski, she supports lifting revenue limits, allowing property tax rates to skyrocket unchecked. Kieski's backers